first, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello, everyone. This is Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thanks for joining us. I want to pull this up right here. This is our ski bowl camera taking a live look right now at Mount Hood. Pretty beautiful up there. Great day outside. You can still see some of that snow and ice up there at the top. But we're going to be talking about today is something that happened earlier. So this was during Good Day, Oregon. We pull up these shots a lot during those kinds of things, but we noticed something right there. So I want to pull this up to show you what we're going to be discussing here to give you a good idea. So that was earlier today. You can see that, I don't know. That's what we don't know what it is. Is it steam? Is it smoke? Is it a cloud? Taking a look right there. I've got a couple other angles of that, or not angles, but a couple other shots. And I also have one here. This is kind of a time-lapse version coming up that you can take a look at as well and get an idea. That's over the course of quite a while. This is 20 minutes reduced down to about a minute or so. But looking at what we were seeing there and trying to understand what exactly that is. It's a mystery to us, but that's what we're going to be discussing. And I'm Greg Nibbler. So this is Fox 12 Now. We're live streaming here from the Fox 12 Oregon newsroom, as we do every weekday. In case it's your first time watching, this is where we're at between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. We're here with all kinds of different segments, and if there's breaking news, we have that as well. And sometimes we get to call on our experts in this field to answer some of these questions for us that genuinely we're curious about as well, to find out what this is. And that's why we're joined right now by Wes Thielen from the USGS Cascades Volcano Observatory. And Wes, thank you very much, for being here. I think really quick, for anybody who doesn't know, could you just explain to them, maybe what you do there and what the Cascades Volcano Observatory is?
Yeah, great question. So we are a federal government agency. We are under the United States Geologic Survey. We monitor the volcanoes in the Cascades. So that is a range that goes from Mount Baker in the north down to Crater Lake in the south. We help our friends at the California Volcano Observatory if there's any activity at Shasta or Lassen or Medicine Lake. And we are a group of scientists and engineers and computer scientists and lots of different expertise here at the volcano. And one thing that we all have in common is that we love volcanoes. And we love working on volcanoes. We're interested. And we sort of split our time between understanding more about volcanoes, either by doing science and monitoring the current state of volcanoes. And that includes data streams like you showed with webcams, but also with seismic data and GPS data or satellite data, gas data, whatever we can get our hands on in order to figure out what's going on under the volcano, we're going to ingest and interpret and try to make sense of.
And we've certainly called upon you, recently for some of the activity going on in Mount Rainier. I know we've talked about Mount Adams before, so that includes, some of the earthquakes that occur that you all monitor with all those different data sources and data points and really valuable information there that people can rely on and go to. Talking about this one here for Mount Hood. So I'm not even sure how to begin discussing this. I'll pull up here just our Mount Hood camera, taking a look there at it right now. But earlier today, this is not that one. This is what we were seeing there on Mount Hood. So seeing some of this up near towards the top, would you be able to explain to us what we're looking at right here on Mount Hood from earlier today?
Absolutely. So what you're looking at there is you're looking at steam that's coming off of a thermal area called Devil's Kitchen up there. And so there's several thermal areas that are up there that are emitting volcanic gases. And so that is one area. There's actually another area. That big craggy rock in the middle is called Crater Peak. And there's another area that's to the left of Crater Peak where our gas group actually goes up and directly samples those gases for any changes from year to year. And so what you're seeing here is you're seeing an area in Devil's Kitchen that is hot, and this being the morning time, your dew point is fairly low, and so some of that heat is condensing and creating a little bit of steam that's coming off of there. And I think it is the case that if you are a recreationalist that has been up on Mount Hood, even at the ski area, you can sometimes smell some of those volcanic gases that are coming out. And yes, it is somewhat scary to think about volcanic gases coming out of a volcano, but in this particular case, this volcano always has these gases coming out. We monitor them. It really hasn't changed in the time that we've been looking at this type of data. And you know, if something were to change up there, we would expect that we would see changes in earthquakes, like what we've seen at Mount Rainier, and we've not seen that. We would see changes in the way that the volcano is either inflating or deflating, and we don't see any of that. So really, this is something that happens up there pretty commonly when the dew point comes down and you get steam that's coming off of that thermal area there.
So it's that hot area, the dew point being down, and the combination of all of that creates that. And this is something that's frequently seen up there, you said. So if someone were up around, say, that area, I mean, granted, that's pretty high up there. To be near that would probably take some pretty skilled climbers. But if you're around there, you mentioned some of the things that people would smell. And even down to the skiing area, you said sometimes people can smell this, like the rotten egg smell.
Yep.
So what are some of the common things that people will notice when it comes to these when they're up on Mount Hood?
I mean, you know, the climber's route goes right by Devil's Kitchen there and kind of wraps around Crater Rock and then up, depending on what the conditions are and what the route the climber wants to take. It is a intense smell that you get from the specifically the H2S, and that gas in particular is really stinky, and you know when you catch a whiff of it. And what's really interesting is that for whatever reason, the way that we smell, our sensitivity to it is very high. And so even though it smells really bad, it does. And even at the ski area, I mean, I've been on the chairlift out there and really caught them and been like, wow, this is amazing, because if I'm at Meadows, I'm not very close to the vent where it's coming out of up there, but it's really small concentrations of gas that are coming through, and we're just really sensitive to it. And so that being said, that's not necessarily what you're seeing up there. You can't really see the H2S gas. You're seeing the steam that comes along with the water vapor and the SO2 and all the gases, all the volcanic gases that are coming out of that volcano. It's the water vapor that's condensing, but it's, you know, the H2S, the SO2, all those other volcanic gases are kind of going along for the ride.
Right. Wow. And so it's that intense too that sometimes you can smell it all the way down to Meadows. That's pretty fascinating. What would need to change on that for it to be something that would be of concern when it comes to Mount Hood?
Well, what we would expect to see, and you know, this is a volcano that we haven't really monitored while it's erupting, right? So its last eruption started in 1781 and lasted for 10 or more years, and so we haven't had monitoring on it. And so we look at other volcanoes that are analogous to try to understand like what a generic typical buildup to an eruption would be, and we would expect to see more gases come out. We would expect to see lots of earthquakes, thousands, tens of thousands of earthquakes, large earthquakes. We'd expect to see earthquakes with different signatures. We'd expect to see inflation of the volcano as magma was coming up into the shallow part of the volcano there. And we have got a really good monitoring network there that would record any of those changes, even if they're very small. And, you know, as it stands right now at Mount Hood, we get, you know, 5 to 10 earthquakes a month there. We get around 1 swarm per year. So it is you know, volcanically, it is relatively active in terms of its seismicity, but we don't see any dramatic changes. And, you know, it's those really dramatic changes where we would see thousands or tens of thousands of earthquakes that we would expect to happen before anything was to happen at the surface, especially because it hasn't erupted since, the late 1700s. So it's been a closed system, meaning it's, pretty stopped up at the top. Things are pretty cold at the top. They're warm underneath, but it's going to take some energy to kind of break through that cap.
And that's just not something that you've seen any evidence of that?
No, I mean, it's been pretty quiet up there over the past, couple of weeks, really.
Would this, and just to answer a question that I'm sure somebody might be asking too, when you compare what's going on at Mount Rainier as far as the number of earthquakes and some of the different reasons for that, could that have an effect down the line on the Cascades with anything happening with Mount Hood?
Yeah, good question. The answer is no. These earthquakes that are happening at Mount Rainier are very small. The seismometers we have are hyper sensitive. If somebody walks by a seismometer, we can see that. If some elk walks by, we can see that. But we can't see any of the seismic waves that are coming from Mount Rainier, except for some of the biggest earthquakes that come from there, which are low twos. And that's just not enough ground motion to do anything to the volcano inside. We see waves pass through the volcano. In fact, just this afternoon, there was a earthquake that happened. I actually haven't even looked yet to see where it happened, but I could see the seismic waves come in. They go right through the volcano, and really the volcano isn't sensitive enough to care that those waves are moving through that area. And the amplitude of those waves are much higher than anything we see at Mount Rainier. Now, to kind of follow up on that, we also don't believe that there's any link at all between the magma systems at Rainier and Hood, or even the more nearby volcanoes, Rainier and St. Helens. They aren't connected at all. The only thing that connects them is the subduction zone, where the Juan de Fuca is plunging underneath the North American plate and generating magma at depth along this line that we call the Cascades, right? So the process is the same that generates the magma underneath these volcanoes, but they're not at all connected.
Interesting. That's just happened to be along the same line.
Yeah, when you're up at Timberline, you look south, you can see the line of volcanoes. You're sitting on Hood, you look south, you see Jefferson, you see the Three Sisters, it's all in a line there. It's really wild and a nice verification of plate tectonics.
Well, anything else that you think people should know just about what's going on up there at Mount Hood? I mean, you solved, obviously, the mystery that's on the lower third there is solved. But anything else that people should be aware of when it comes to that?
I think that it's important to know that Mount Hood is an active volcano. It has erupted pretty recently. Just right before Lewis and Clark came through was the last time it erupted. And we expect eruptions to happen there again. There's nothing in the system that suggests that it's dead or cold or anything like that. We just, in the Cascades, Mount St. Helens is the most likely volcano to erupt next, and every other volcano in the Cascades has about equal chances. And so what we can do is we can monitor the volcano and we can look for changes. At Mount Hood, it has one of the best monitoring networks in the Cascades. So we're confident that we can see those changes in the volcano pretty close to when they start, and interpret those and evaluate the volcanic hazard appropriately. And so for those people that live in the drainages around there, know what your hazards are. Don't be scared, just be prepared. And make sure that you're looking at reliable sources of information for your hazard information. There's lots of places to go online and elsewhere that are out there fear-mongering, and make sure that the sources that you're getting for your volcanic hazard or earthquake hazard information are reliable and trusted, and you'll be fine.
And what's the best way to follow along with what you all put out as far as monitoring and notifications?
Yeah, great question. So you can sign up for our volcano notification service. You can look either go online and type in USGS volcano notification service. We would push out anytime that there's a significant change in the activity of the volcano, we put out a notice. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at USGS Volcanoes. Actually, we have some very cool live streams coming from Kilauea right now that are on YouTube, and you can see that on the USGS channel there. And so follow along on the socials or sign up on VNS, and we'll push notifications to you. And you can see what what we think is interesting and noteworthy.
Well, Wes, thank you very much for joining us just to talk about this too. I mean, I think it's fascinating and interesting to learn more about that and just understand what's going on with these mountains that surround us, and having you all there to get us that information and to let us know what's going on. It's really appreciate it, and just appreciate your time today.
Yep, love the discussion. Keep them coming.
Yeah, awesome. Will do. All right. So that was Wes Thielen there from USGS. We're going to take a break. I want to thank everybody for joining us here on Fox 12 Now. If it's your first time watching, these are the things we get to do: longer form discussions. We get to go more in depth and have a talk about some of these things that we see that are happening around here. If you have an idea for a segment, feel free to send me an email, fox12now@kptv.com. That's fox12now, kptv.com. Download that Fox 12 Oregon app. You can watch live or after the fact on there. And thanks for joining us. I'll talk to you soon. Again, I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now.